Hola a todos, buenos días y bienvenidos otra vez aquí al podcast. Wait, what am I doing? That's the wrong introduction to the wrong podcast. Maybe I'll just leave that in there. That's my other podcast. Anyway, welcome back, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse about all things Spain. This is episode 21. I hope you're having a great day out there, whatever it is you're doing. And I guess I should mention I'm working on a new episode about the Great Recession because I was in Spain for the whole Great Recession, but I sat down to record that and realized that the article I have about the Great Recession needs some work. And so far, that work has turned into a couple thousand words of a completely different article. So maybe the Great Recession thing will be out soon, or maybe not, depending. Today, I thought I'd pour myself a nice glass of sherry and talk about some proverbs. So let me take a sip here. Sherry. It's an acquired taste, but it's nice in summer on hot days like this one. So Spanish Proverbs. I guess I could tell you before we get started that this is going to be not safe for work. So if you have small children or puritanical relatives in the room, now would be a good time to find something else to listen to. This is going to be a little bit dirty because these Spanish proverbs are different than the type of proverbs we might grow up with in the English-speaking world. In the English-speaking world, in general, we have a bit more of a Puritan mindset about sex and things like that, and it's certainly not something that your grandmother is referencing in the proverbs she uses. But, I mean, my grandmother might have, but your grandmother might have been slightly less of a character than mine and might not have been saying things like that. However, in Spain, it's a bit different, and we have some proverbs that are pretty raunchy. So, let's just start with proverb number 1. By the way, episode 21, you can find the article here at expatmadrid.com/21, just the number 21, because episode 21, and that will take you to an article where you get most of this same information, and you can read the proverbs. You can make a list of them for further study if you want to memorize them or something like that. Whatever you want. So expatmadrid.com/21. So, proverb number 1. Donde tienes la olla, no metas la polla. This is, figuratively, it is don't shit where you eat. Literally, it's something like don't stick your dick where you have the cooking pot. La olla is a pot for cooking things, and la polla is the male reproductive apparatus, let us say. So, donde tienes la olla, no metas la polla. This basically is an injunction to avoid workplace romance. Do not sleep with your coworkers. If you're an English teacher, and I was for a long time, occasionally your students will act like you're just being difficult when you insist on the correct pronunciation of different vowels in English. However, this is important in Spanish too, because I had a friend back in the day who would visit Spain from time to time, and he would be confused about the difference between pollo and polla, and we would go to restaurants, and he would order the polla, and the looks on waiters' faces as this poor German-Austrian guy ordered polla was nice. It was precious. It was a nice times were had by all, except this guy who was super embarrassed about it, but he couldn't figure out which one was which. So anyway, that is donde tienes la olla, no metas la polla. Those vowels are important. Proverb number 2. Encima de puta, pongo la cama. This basically refers to adding insult to injury, but the literal translation is something like, apart from being a whore, I have to provide the bed. Which, is a bit ambiguous what that even means, but there's lots of prostitution in Spanish proverbs. I guess there's a lot of prostitution in Spanish society. I'm not a real expert on that, but in Spanish pop culture, there's definitely a lot of prostitution. And so, encima de puta pongo la cama, which is used to talk about adding insult to injury. There are a couple of other versions of this which mean more or less the same thing. Meter el dedo en la llaga is to stick your finger in the sore. I guess this means something like, twisting a knife. We're not talking about a literal twisting a knife. We're talking about if somebody's hurt, you touch them exactly where it hurts. So meter el dedo en la llaga, or also echar sal a la herida, which is to throw salt on a wound. Well, to pour salt on a wound would possibly be a good way of translating that. We do say pour salt on a wound in English also, I believe. So yeah, those are three things that involve basically hurting people in various ways. Well, that brings us to our third proverb of the day, which is also about prostitution. This one is not very common, but it has a good rhyme, and I had a student from Andalusia back in the day who taught me this one. She was a nice girl. This one is, para ser una puta y no cobrar nada, más vale ser una mujer honrada. It's got a nice rhyme. It means you shouldn't work for free. The literal translation is that if you're going to be a whore who charges nothing, it would be better to be an honorable woman. Better to be an honest woman than a whore who works for free, let's say. So, para ser una puta y no cobrar nada, más vale ser una mujer honrada. My pronunciation there on honrada is not all that great. I have a feeling that the girl who taught me that, being Andaluza, would have said honra or something along those lines, because they're not big on pronouncing the ends of their words down there. So, para ser una puta y no cobrar nada, más vale ser una mujer honrada. I'm not going to continue butchering Andalusian accents. Do not worry, but that would be an approximation. That's about all I have to say about that, but I do agree with the sentiment of not working for free. However, if a recession is coming, a lot of people might be working for free sooner or later. In the last recession, the number of people who were working these unpaid internships was just little bit ridiculous. Also, if you'd like to do an unpaid internship for me, get in touch. You can do some back-breaking blogging labor and social media strategy, and I won't pay you a dime. Let me know. I'm joking. I don't need an intern. Anyway, proverb number 4. Tira más un pelo de coño que un carro de bueyes. This one is considered by some to be a bit sexist. However, it is a common Spanish proverb in this form and in several others. I think the most common is tiran más dos tetas que dos carretas. That one, tiran más dos tetas que dos carretas, basically means that 2 tits pull more weight than 2 ox carts, or something similar to that. 2 tits pull more weight than 2 carriages. The ox cart is the other one. Tira más un pelo de coño que un carro de bueyes is that a pussy hair pulls more weight than an ox cart. Neither of these make much literal sense. The basic idea is that they talk about men and how men will do almost anything to satisfy or please a beautiful woman, basically. I'm reminded of Helen of Troy and the face that launched 1,000 ships. However, that sounds a bit more noble than what we're talking about here with un pelo de coño. Tira más un pelo de coño que un carro de bueyes. I did Google this one this morning, and it turns out that there are several other versions involving different parts of the female anatomy. Blah, 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 blah. You can Google around if you'd like, but there's lots of different versions of many of these proverbs. So if you've heard one that sounds like one of mine, but slightly different, it's not necessarily that I'm wrong or that you're wrong. It's that there are versions of these. Proverb number 5. Cuando el grajo vuela bajo, hace un frío del carajo. Cuando el grajo vuela bajo, hace un frío del carajo. So this is just basically something about the weather. I don't think it's literal about grajos. A grajo is like a crow or a raven. And the literal thing here is when the raven flies low, it's very cold. The raven flies low when it is very cold. I think they just say it because it rhymes. Cuando el grajo vuela bajo, hace un frío del carajo. Like people say this all the time on a very cold day, and I don't think any of them have any idea about the behavior of crows or ravens in a literal sense. There's also the longer version, which basically is just another testicle reference and another rhyme. So the long version. Cuando el grajo vuela bajo, hace un frío del carajo. Y cuando se posan sobre los balcones, hace un frío de cojones. What does a frío de cojones mean exactly? Well, nothing. The addition of de cojones or de carajo, del carajo, to the end of these things just means it's like fucking cold. It's really cold. It's a way of expressing, disdain for the situation. So, cojones are literally testicles. Carajo, I have no idea what carajo even means. It's just kind of an exclamation. Carajo. It's like, damn it. Something like that. So, cuando el grajo vuela bajo, hace un frío del carajo is about the weather and how it is cold. When the crow flies low, it's very cold, and when it sits on the balcony, you freeze your balls off. Not exactly a good literal translation, but that's a basic idea of what that says. Speaking of black birds, here's another one, proverb number 6. Cría cuervos y te sacarán los ojos. Cría cuervos y te sacarán los ojos. If you raise crows, they will peck your eyes out. This is about raising children. If you raise children badly, they will eventually, come back and make your life very difficult, is basically what that means. It's sort of a similar sentiment to you reap what you sow, for example. When I look on word reference, it has an English equivalent, I guess, which is a Shakespearean line. How sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child, which I guess was said in King Lear or by King Lear or something. King Lear does seem to have been about thankless children, but I don't know. I've never heard anybody start a sentence in English with how sharper than a serpent's tooth it is. So maybe you've heard that and maybe you haven't. Maybe you're a Shakespearean scholar and maybe you're not. I am definitely not. And who is these days? Maybe you are. Anyway, that's number 6. Proverb number 7 is Cuando el diablo se aburre, mata moscas con el rabo. Cuando el diablo se aburre, mata moscas con el rabo. Ooh, I gotta do a tongue twister one, because there's a good tongue twister that also talks about the word rabo. Rabo could be penis. In this case, it's not penis. It is the tail of the devil. So this is, when the devil gets bored, he kills flies with his tail. This is sort of a Spanish version of the English expression, idle hands are the devil's workshop. It means that when you're bored, you might do stupid things, basically. So stay busy, keep yourself busy, and avoid doing stupid things. Good advice that I perhaps did not appreciate immediately when I first heard it when I was young, but it does seem to be good advice. Our last proverb of the day, Entre Santa y Santo, pared de cal y canto. Entre Santa y Santo, pared de cal y canto. None of these sound very good in translation because they all lose the rhyme when you change them from Spanish to English. Entre Santa y Santo, pared de cal y canto means that temptation is stronger than we are. That even a saint and a saint of the opposite sex, a male saint and a female saint, Santa y Santo, we need to put a stone wall. You can imagine, a couple of saints traveling. They stop at a hostel for the night. They say, well, should we just share a room? We are, after all, both saints. Certainly there will be no temptation between two saints. Well, we have this proverb to explain what to do in that situation. Entre Santa y Santo, pared de cal y canto. Basically, no matter how good and holy a person is, they can slip up and do something wrong. So you'd better put a wall between them and make sure that it doesn't happen. Anyway, I hope you are enjoying your day wherever it is you are in this big wide world. If you like me for some reason, you could follow me on different platforms, and I do all kinds of stuff. If you would like to listen to my other podcast, it's called Aprende Más Inglés. If you're listening to this, you probably don't need it because it's about learning English for Spanish speakers. But at the beginning, I just sat down today and I set up the microphone and I hit record and I automatically went into the introduction for the wrong podcast. That one is out every Monday because that one actually makes me some money. So I do it with greater regularity. This podcast is free, but if you would like to donate something, you can go to expatmadrid.com/donate and you can invite me to a glass of sherry, or you can invite me to 100 glasses of sherry if you would like. There's a page where you can just donate whatever you feel like donating. You could also follow along on the blog expatmadrid.com. If you go there and you put your email address into the form at the top or bottom of the site, you can get updates when I make new podcasts. You can get new articles when I write them. Not everything I write there is about the Spanish language. I write a lot about general life in Spain, things. If you like this, you would probably like that. I'm not convinced that I am as amusing when I am speaking as I might be when I'm writing. I'm not funny either way, but I might be a little bit funnier in writing. If you would like, you could also check out my YouTube channel, Learn Spanish with Daniel. I've got that over there. Learn Spanish with Daniel is exactly what it sounds like. You can learn Spanish with me. I am Daniel. So Without further rambling, I am off. Thank you to this glass of sherry. Thank you to the people who are donating to the podcast, and thank you to you for listening. Have a good one, and until next time, from beautiful Barcelona, hasta la próxima, and bye.